Good evening. We're back. Episode 46 of Cap and Trade. I am your host, TexansCap. You can follow me on Twitter at TexansCap or over on YouTube under the Cap and Trade show. We got a lot to get to tonight. Our esteemed colleague, Landry Locker, is running a few minutes behind. He'll hop on here in a few moments. But for now, we'll get started. Appreciate everybody joining the show tonight, listening in. We're over on Twitter Live and YouTube Live. Not gonna have the spaces included anymore. So we'll just hopefully get some more folks over here on YouTube to join in with us over here. So if you're listening in, I appreciate it. Got a lot to cover tonight. A lot going on the past week between a tough loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Pro Bowl votes came in this week. We had some roster changeover, some key rookies going to IR this past weekend. And, there's a lot of rumblings going on concerning Lovie Smith and his job security, Nick Caserio and his job security, a lot of discussion on Bryce Young and quarterbacks and what Houston should do at the number one pick. So we got a ton to get into tonight. But we'll start off with the game. It was an exciting game. Houston was in control of that game at various points of the competition, and Kansas City, which we all kind of knew as Houston fans, especially with the history with Kansas City, that they were going to try to make a run and try to come back, and at which point they did, and that was to be expected. But there was some key decisions, I think, from this coaching staff. You've got the 4th and 1 in the first half that Lovie opted to punt, leaning on his defense, and then they end up going for 97 yards to get the touchdown and get back into the game. But I think the one that was really the most glaring decision error was bringing in Jeff Driscoll when they had the ball at the 9-yard line and trying to run whatever they were trying to run. He took a 4-yard sack without throwing the ball away when he ran out of bounds. And the offense was just churning along, doing very well. Davis Mills was in, command for his part. The running game, Royce Freeman was finding some lanes. They seemed to be having a little more success running on the outside versus on the interior. But that was just a drive killer. I mean, I don't subscribe to the whole momentum thing per se, but the offense had a little momentum going there, and to bring in Driscoll like that, and it just killed anything that they had, and it was a waste of a down. And then it put the team back in a 2nd and long, heading into the end zone, and that just put everything behind schedule, and it just really kind of set the offense up for failure, and they were not able to score there. But it's just another, like we talked about week in, week out here, the decisions that this staff makes are just questionable. And this was another one by Pep Hamilton bringing in Driscoll. And I know we're already getting some comments on the board, getting way too close to winning. Texans need to lose this game. And I get all that. And I think we're all in agreement that the team needed to lose. But, at that point, I was willing to accept one more win, right? And I think everybody wanted the one extra win to be against Cleveland. But I think this team is in pretty clear running to get the number one pick, even if they would have won against Kansas City. I don't know that they could get another win the back half in the last 3 weeks, but I think it's, I guess it was just more fun to see them being competitive in the game. Yeah, and Sam nails it here. When you get that close, you want to win. And I think that's kind of, I always carry the two hats. One is try to be a fan. The other one's try to be an unbiased kind of analyst look at it. And so, but as a fan perspective, it was exciting. It was exciting to see the team competitive in the game, having a shot to win. And sometimes that's fun, especially with the season that this team has had with so many blowouts, at the midway point of the season. And now 2 weeks in a row that they've been competitive against the Dallas Cowboys and now against Kansas City Chiefs. And, this is kind of a segue into the whole Lovie Smith discussion. And that's one thing I kind of wanted to talk about tonight was there was a lot of questions, I think, from the fan base, or a lot of concern maybe that seeing the team improve and be competitive in these past 2 games, does it cause Cal McNair and Nick Caserio to think, I don't know, maybe we need to keep Lovie for another year? And my answer to that would probably be no. I think I don't want to say that the decision has already been made, but there's a lot of rumblings out there, a lot of tea leaves out there that point to this coaching staff getting yet another overhaul and a third head coach in 3 years coming in 2023. I got another message today from somebody I trust that kind of pins the odds more of 60-40, 70-30 that the team moves on from Lovie. As somebody that I trust that the things that person works on for various people kind of leads me to believe that, what he's saying is on point, that the team is probably going to move on. And, I've talked to a few other people over the weekend, and there's some notion out there that the team may have already made a decision. Right. And so I just, we'll have to wait and see, but I think it's pretty clear that this team is going to move on from Lovie. I think the first item that we saw that was a potential was Cal McNair showing up at the press conference in Miami. I think that was the first sign. And there was some people that were saying, that he was just there, he was showing his son around, things like that. That's not something that's normal, especially for an away game. So I think that was the first clue that we had. And then there's some other rumblings going on behind the scenes that from the people I've heard from, that it just gives me clear indication that there's a very real chance that this coaching staff gets another overhaul, another change. And I think on the flip side of that, I think Nick Caserio's job security is probably safe. And with that, we'll go ahead and bring in Mr. Landry Locker. Finally made it into the show. What's up, sir?
What's up, man? How you living? I'm with you. I think they move on from Lovie. If they don't, it's going to be a tough sell. It makes sense. I don't think it's a surprise. Nobody thought he was the long-term guy. Given the fact that you're probably going to have a quarterback, I think the move on, it's the right move. And I think it's the smart move. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm on it.
Yeah, I think Unexpected Truth's comment here about 2 years of tape on Lovie, I think there's 17 seasons as a head coach in which he's 30 games under 500 and he's 10 games under 500 as an NFL coach. And there's really no evidence that he has changed the way in which he coaches. Like he coaches Derek Stingley. And I think Seth Payne brought this up the other day. I thought it was a really good point. If you're going to coach corners the way that Lovie's coaching corners right now, just bring in a couple of Steven Nelsons. Like don't use a draft pick on a man corner like Derek Stingley. And I think it also speaks volumes that Nick Caserio drafted Derek Stingley, ignoring, systematic fit. So I think the writing's on the wall there, and it's the right play. Yeah. So I was talking about before you hopped on, that I talked to one person who does some consulting work for folks that are potentially looking for head coaching jobs, GM jobs, things like that. And because I think somebody asked him to do a little research on Houston's position in their roster and how they manage the salary cap, things like that, kind of led him to believe that Houston's heading down that path. And, like we said, I think Cal showing up in Miami at the presser was one clue. This, a few people I talked to this weekend were further clues. And then this message tonight was another clue. So I think it's just like we always say, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I think it's coming. There's really no reason to do it at this point versus doing it after the season's over. You've only got 3 games left, so just let them finish it out and make the change. Hopefully, it's a quick decision and it's not something that hangs out, kind of like what we saw last year. So, we'll see what happens. Like you said, there's really no reason to bring him back. He was good for the beginning of the season. He was good for bringing this team out of the situations that they were at, but he's not going to go on and move up to the next level. I want somebody who's creative, that's innovative, that's going to bring something, to this defense, to this offense. And you just don't get that with Lovie. He just kind of has that old school mentality. We're going to play this way and we're going to execute. And I think the game has just kind of moved on past that type of mentality, that kind of scheme, that kind of coaching staff. I mean, we even just past week with the Kansas City game, we saw a few variations from what we would see before. We saw a few linebacker blitzes, see the team doing a little bit something different. But at the end of the day, the Derek Stingley thing is one piece of the puzzle that's broken, and his scheme, the way that just leaves the middle of the field wide open and not making adjustments for it, is just kind of just wearing down on the fan base, and there's really no improvement, no light to that end of that tunnel.
I'm going to judge you more based on what you do when, there is something to lose, how you play defense when there is something to lose, not when, it's the final 5 weeks of the season and, maybe you're willing to blitz a little bit more and you're willing to lay it all out there. I think you can judge a coach a lot more based on how they coach when something is on the line instead of, we're 17-point underdog to the Cowboys or, Kansas. Although the Cowboys, the end of the game defense was piss poor. The final drive. I mean, the middle of the field was wide ass open.
Yeah.
So, it's not like they've just been, the defense hasn't been great, to say the least. It's one of the worst defenses in the league, and personnel has a lot to do with it. But
yeah, definitely.
I don't see anything.
No adjustment.
It's what we know. Like it's what we know. It's nothing surprising.
Yeah, because I was watching a couple of videos and somebody was looking at how Brandon Staley and the Chargers adjusted when they played against Miami, and how they just completely took away the middle of the field, which is where Mike McDaniel's system attacks. That's where Tua has been successful all year, was in the middle of the field. And what happened in Houston? They just left the middle of the field wide open, just like we saw at the end with the Dallas comeback drive, and we've seen all year long. And there's no adjustment to account for that, And if you're limited by personnel, I get it, but I just don't see the innovation, see the changes, and it's just frustrating. I think it's run its course, and here in probably about 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be having continued heavy discussions on what we want out of a head coach, and you already see it out there. Shane Steichen had his big long article in Sports Illustrated with Connor Orr today, and you're starting to see more and more names get some publicity. Those agents are really working hard already.
Those favors.
Yeah, definitely. So, that was kind of pretty much all I had on the Kansas City game. I talked a little bit about the bringing in Driscoll in the red zone there towards the end. Just kind of,
that was a drive killer.
Yeah.
That was just a lack of feel. And I credited Pep Hamilton for the way that he handled that against Dallas, but there was a shelf life for that. And in that situation, especially with how good Mills looked, taking him off the field in the red zone on first down, I said it in the press box immediately. I said, this is stupid. Like, this is dumb. And then they run the play, to the left, they lose yards. Mills has to trot back out there, and you end up having to kick the field goal. That was I don't want to call it dumb because it's not like that big of a deal, but to me, that kind of showed a little bit of a lack of feel. And I think getting to see what Davis Mills could do in that situation, assuming that, he's probably going to be your backup quarterback next year. I think that's safe to say. I thought it would have been more valuable to have seen him. And that's not hindsight. I don't think Pep Hamilton gets enough credit for, because people are over him, and rightfully so. But he deserves a lot of credit for the way that he used the 2 QB system. But at that point, he should have realized, okay, this ain't working.
It was clear by the end of the first quarter that the 2 QB system was not effective. Was not. Kansas City had already made the adjustments. They were ready for it, and it was just not effective. I mean, Driscoll had less than 10 yards rushing in the first half. His, pass attempts were not near as clean as they were against Dallas, and they were clear and ready for it. And I think they may still lean on it a little bit in the last, these last 3 weeks, but I think for the most part, the 2 QB system's probably about done. You might have I think the usage will drop down to maybe like 5 or 6, 7 plays a game versus the 15 to 20 plays a game for Driscoll at this point, and just put it back on Mills and continue that more traditional approach.
Yeah, and that's what it should be. That's the evaluation that you really need for the whole thing. The Kansas City game, though, I mean, it was that was as good of a result for me as I think you could have had. I did find myself, you had that original knot in your stomach that you would have in like a meaningful game where winning is like clearly better than losing when Mills fumbled. But I mean, I thought other than that, like everything was smooth. It was Davis Mills' best game of the year. Went toe to toe. Kansas City to me is they're frauds. They're absolute frauds. And yes, if you hear squeaking here, my dog, we just opened my dog's stocking, and she is like
an early present, huh?
She is showing off her toys. So she's running around with squeaky toys, like hiding them under the bed and stuff. So my apologies.
No, bro. No, I think the last 2 weeks has probably been some of Mills's best work. But it just begs the question, why does it take a benching or a mental reset or whatever you want to call it?
Sometimes it'd be like that.
What is that? What we got to do?
Kane Brown. Sometimes it'd be like that
every year. If you bring back Mills next year, got to figure out what week we're going to have to bench him and get the mental reset for him so that he gets back on track. I mean,
you bench him week 1 and hopefully you never see him again. Like that's all right. Here's when you bench Davis Mills. He starts the final preseason game and then you bench him and then he can have his reset. And if he's called upon after that, then hopefully we get the mental reset out of the way.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the plan, but hopefully we're not even having that discussion of Mills being the week 1 starter, or maybe
spoiler alert, we won't be.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. It'll be a fun discussion, and that's one thing I wanted to get into tonight. We'll get into it a little bit later on Bryce Young and that continued discussion that's happening in the world. But
you know what's going to piss me off about Bryce Young? I went on this rant today. This is what's going to piss me off about Bryce Young. It's going to be Lamar Jackson-like, where anytime something happens, the people that are digging in on Bryce Young, no matter what, if he struggles, if he doesn't play well, even if it's clearly not because he's short, it's always going to go back to, see, told you he was too short to be in the NFL. It's like Lamar Jackson. Like Lamar Jackson wins a freaking MVP. He's been one of the 15 best players in the NFL for 5 years. And these people who just dug in for whatever reason at just a crazy, insane level, like anytime he hurts his hamstring or something like that, or he misses a couple games while pocket passers are missing games too, it's, see, told you that wouldn't last in the NFL. Told you that, it's all. That's what's going to happen with Bryce Young is if he struggles, even if it's clearly nothing to do with his height, all you're going to hear is, see, told you he was too short to play in the NFL. That's going to drive me freaking nuts.
Yeah. No, Mills.
Yeah, what was that? What was that? Ryan brought this up. What is just play with 10? Why is Davis?
That was a waste of player on the field.
What are we doing?
Don't even send a cornerback out that way. Bring him to the box. It's 11 against 10. My gosh.
The Davis Mills at wideout, reverse and stuff, was oh my God. What are we doing here, Pep?
Yeah, no, that was very quiet. I mean, I remember sitting there and I looked over at Aaron. I was like, what is Mills out wide? And we're just dumbfounded. And they continued it on for the first quarter until they realized, oh, maybe we need 11 playmakers on the field and not wasting a spot out there. So hopefully we'll definitely won't see that again. Hopefully we don't see the two QB system back going anymore, but definitely do not need to see Mr. Davis Mills lined up at wide receiver. You know, for one piece, you know, to segue over to another thing I want to talk about was, you know, the offensive line seemed to perform pretty well. They made a kind of a triage shift. They had Titus Howard at left guard, Charlie Heck starting at right tackle. And that was more of a function of, you know, Kenyon Green being out with the ankle. But instead of bringing in Justin McCray, who's probably worse than Kenyon Green's been playing, put the better player, you know, this was back to let's start our 5 best players kind of mentality. And Titus Howard actually played pretty well at left guard compared to his past performances at the position. And I don't know what that's a function of, but
I hated it still. Like I still didn't like it, but he did play well, but I still just didn't like it. I talked to Charlie Heck in the locker room after the game. You could tell it kind of meant a lot to him to get to play.
His dad,
and the dad and everything like that. But and Charlie played pretty decent too. But I just don't want to move. You have really good tackles right now, and Titus is there. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to move Titus Howard anymore.
No, I don't like that game, but it'll be see if they do it again this week. It looks like Kenyon's not going to play again. He wasn't practicing today. I'd be shocked if he's back. So it feels like it's going to be another game of Titus at left guard. But it seemed like, or at least the notion, a lot of hypothesis at the time was their pass rush. The best pass rusher on Kansas City defense is Chris Jones on the interior. So let's move Titus inside and have a better shot at blocking the interior, which would be kind of the same mentality that you would have against Tennessee with their front defensive line. So I feel like unless Kenyon just makes a big turnaround at practice and shows back up tomorrow, but I mean he wasn't even dressed out at all.
I don't need him rushing anything.
He's on the same path as Pierce and Stingley. I think I'd be shocked if we see him again this year.
And it's almost protecting him from himself at this point. Like he's going out, he's embarrassing himself quite consistently. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, but when you watch him play, it's you almost feel sorry for him. And I don't know if it's health, I don't know if it's technique, I don't know if it's confidence. Like we need to get that young man to the offseason so that he can get, you know, focused for when minicamp comes around. I expect like a body transformation, mental cleansing, you know. And
I think
fresh start.
I think there's some rumblings that, you know, Kenyon's agents trying to find the best nutritionist and get him on that type of plan in the off season and get him going and kind of get off of the young boy body that he has and start kind of transforming more toward a more modern offensive line body type.
Yeah.
And I think that will alone help his strength, help his footwork, and then hopefully he can get healthy, get past the ankle issues because he's had that off and on all year long. So, man, it's been been a rough patch here for the rookie class. You know, between Pierce getting hurt and trying, you know, basically having to hold him down from getting back into the game, and Stingley's continued injuries when that was kind of a red flag to begin with, and you know. Hopefully, we'll just kind of see a reboot of this rookie class in 2023 because really it's just left over to Christian Harrison and Catoriano, who are both, you know, Harris is all over the place. He's still making some of his mistakes, but that dude is all over the place and he's
fast as hell, man. He's fast and he's very fundamentally sound. Like he might make some mistakes sometimes tackling wise. He's a little bit reckless, but as far as like squaring the hips, running, covering ground, he is solid as it gets. He is going to be a ball player. I wanted to bring something up to you because you're the one who actually brought this up. And then I really just looked at it today and I sent it to Pendergast and he was dumbfounded by it.
What's
talking
this?
About linebackers. This is random. This is right up. This is right. This is why you're you. And this is like a perfect topic for you since we're on the linebackers.
Okay.
Bro, how did Reeves-Maybin get the contract that he got?
That's quite possibly one of the worst, other than Justin Britt. That is one of the worst contracts. They wanted him
told Sean. Sean was like, I thought he was a 1-year minimum guy. That one just like went over my head.
Next year,
$3 million.
Yeah, he got a full guaranteed salary, small signing bonus, and he's got a small guarantee next year. And it just, I mean, I know they wanted
that.
I know, and he's not even really that good on special teams, and he's like linebacker number 4, 5. That one,
like for a contract like that, you should be better than Christian Kirksey, or like that same like caliber ish player, maybe even a little bit better.
I remember when that signing happened. Jeff Risdon, who covers Detroit, sent me a message. He's just like, "Oh, you're gonna regret that contract when you see Reeves-Maybin on the field. He's got cement boots and he is way past it." And I just maybe that was an Easterby negotiated contract. That's the only thing I can think of. But that was a horrible evaluation. They wanted him the year before. They tried to sign him the year before after his rookie deal, and he re-signed with Detroit on a 1-year deal. But my gosh, that's one of the worst contracts. Him and Justin Britt were the 2 worst free agent contracts given out this past year, easily.
Dude, and the Reeves-Maybin is fascinating.
I don't know. I mean, their agent really worked over the Texans. Whoever was negotiating the contract. Maybe it was Andrew Sinton on his own. I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't know those things, but yeah, he's got a $1.25 million salary guarantee next year. My God. Fuck, that's ridiculous.
I looked at it and I sent it to Sean, and I didn't like put the name, and I go, wow. He goes, whose deal is that? I was like, that's Reeves-Maybin. He's like, what?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
That's a weird one.
That's just going to be a salary guarantee that they eat next year when they release him, and hopefully he'll sign with somebody else and they'll offset the money and get some of the credit back in 2024. But that was just,
it ain't going to be that much money. It ain't all going to be an offset.
No, I mean, hopefully he'll find somewhere, get the minimum, offset some of that 1.25 million and get back 800,000 or 900,000 credit following year. But yeah, I didn't really know much about him to begin with.
I just assumed he could play. I just assumed that this guy's going to be a starting linebacker. When you see
that contract, you're thinking, okay, yeah, he's going to play. And they had him, that they brought back Kevin Pierre-Louis, who's reworked his deal, brought back Kirksey, and it was just kind of a hodgepodge of linebackers. But the Reeves-Maybin, I didn't really know much about him, so that's when I reached out to Jeff, and he came and gave me the scoop on it, and I was like, oh, we're going to regret this. And sure enough, I mean, through preseason, you saw it, that, you got undrafted rookies, Jake Hansen, getting more playing time than Mr. $4 million salary guarantee, Jalen Reeves-Maybin. So that one was rough. And, hopefully we'll see some better contract signings and not that kind of nonsense next year. But, and on that front, while we're talking on contracts, and a few people are kind of asking about it, what kind of extension candidates are we looking at on this team? What kind of contract extensions should this team be looking at next year? And I think it's pretty clear at this point, at least in my eyes, the players that you would be hoping to get back would be Tavier Thomas and Chris Moore. Tavier Thomas, like we've mentioned before, they were going to try to re-sign him at the beginning of the season, and then he got injured, and that kind of put a halt to that situation. But after about one game, man, he is just already back in form to what we saw last year, and is once again one of the top 10 slot cornerbacks out there. And so I think you definitely try to get him back, re-sign him, and I don't think we're going to see anything before the end of the season. So hopefully they can get a deal knocked out with him before he gets to free agency. And then Chris Moore, they can't do an extension with Chris Moore right now just because of the rules that are involved with the veteran salary benefit contract that Chris Moore is on. They can do it after the regular season's over, but they can't do it in season. But I think he has shown enough in his additional playing time these past few weeks to earn a spot back on this roster and compete, and should be very good depth at a minimum, at least for this roster, for this wide receiver core going into the next season. Hopefully, it probably is just another 1-year deal, 2-year deal if you really want to get a lot of fluff with it, but probably another 1-year deal, but a little bit more juice to it than what he got this past year. I think he's earned that. I think he's earned that $2.5–3 million contract next year with a small, $1 or $2 million guarantee in there. He's on the veteran minimum this year with 150,000 guarantee. So I think I think that would be the two players that are pending free agents that you would want to bring back on new deals.
I have a couple more. I think Tremont Smith and Jonathan Owens are guys that I would look at too. I think Jonathan
Smith's been a kind of a revelation at cornerback. I really didn't see that coming from him playing this well, especially at his size. He's been a very good special teams guy. I'm sorry to cut you off, but
no,
he didn't have any defensive snaps leading up to the Dallas game. And so he's played really well. 3 interceptions now. And that's kind of been a nice thing to see from him.
Yeah, I'm with you on Moore. I'm with you on Tavier Thomas. I would throw Tremont Smith in there. I think Jonathan Owens is a good depth guy. Yeah. I think Wifey loves the city too. So I think Owens, look, is it ideal for him to be starting at safety? Probably not, but I think he's a good guy to have around. I think he's good. And I also think it's different because he's not a free agent, but Laramie Tunsil, by the way, on In the Loop tomorrow, doesn't even do podium stuff. He's going to be doing the show tomorrow, probably in the noon hour. He's definitely getting an extension in the offseason. Like you can book that.
Yeah, you see Mr. Aaron Wilson kind of really hyping him up the last
He's got to sneak that Tunsil question into every presser, doesn't he?
And I think Tunsil doesn't have an agent. He's got a consulting group. I think it's the same folks that were helping DeAndre Hopkins out on his contract with Arizona, and that group I think helped out Bobby Wagner and a couple other players. But he's got all the leverage when it comes to Tunsil and a potential extension. He's got all the leverage in this one. And when I say that, what I mean is his contract, the back-to-back restructures that we've seen from Caserio to free up cap space has ballooned the last year of his contract with a cap figure of a little over 35 million. Which that kind of number, that kind of percentage of your cap you reserve for a quarterback. And to have your left tackle having that kind of salary cap. So that puts him in a position. You either trade or extend, and you don't want to trade him. He just got voted to be a starter of the Pro Bowl. He's really been harping on the All-Pro honors later this year. He's been really working hard towards that. But I think trade is not really something you want to go down that path. I think he's one of those foundation type players, and he's already mentioned it. Yeah, I'm ready to look at something like a 2-year deal. I think he mentioned something like that. He's being a very smart business guy when it comes to contracts, aiming for those short-term deals, not those 3 or 4 or 5-year deals that can kind of lock the player in. So I think as soon as the season's over, they'll start putting numbers together. He's going to come in super high, just like he did on the last extension, but he will become the highest paid offensive lineman in the NFL. Book it by the start of next season. I think it's very clear that's going to happen. I think the part that's going to be interesting to me is the timing of it. Do they do it prior to free agency so that they free up some of that cap dollars to spread to other players during free agency? Or do they get through free agency and do the extension in the summertime and then use that free cap dollars to roll over into 2024? That'll be probably the more interesting point for me at this, besides the structure and the numbers involved.
I want to ask you this because this is a question that really only you can answer. You're the person that could answer this the best. We talk about potential trust issues with Nick Caserio from a personnel standpoint. How much do you trust Nick Caserio and his staff cap wise?
I think they've made some mistakes, some missteps, some bad judgment calls. They've done some wonky contracts. They did a few wonky contracts right there at the end of the preseason before the regular season started that cost them a few cap dollars for no reason whatsoever. And I don't know if that's a function of Easterby being over that process. I don't know how heavily involved Caserio was, but it just seems like a very slim department for that area. Andrew Brown is kind of if you wanted to compare, I think he's kind of got that Chris Olsen role. He did all the rookie contract negotiations, and I think some of the lower level veteran contract negotiations. So I'm kind of curious if Caserio is going to get more involved, or if maybe he was involved in the bigger deals. I don't know. That's the piece that is kind of the unknown for me. But based on their past history, I've got a few concerns. Like the Reeves-Maben deal was kind of one of them, but I just don't know who negotiated those contracts. If Caserio is going to take more of a heavy hand this go around, I think I'd feel a little bit better. But their valuations in some aspects just seems to be a little bit off. But we haven't seen him really sign a big deal, right? We haven't seen any marquee free agent deals, no big extensions beyond the Cooks deal, and we kind of seen how that's working out, unfortunately. So I think there should be a little bit of cause for concern. We'll just have to wait and see how this next free agency period, but I'm not fully confident. I'm like 50-60% confidence if I had to put a number on it, but I do have concerns for sure.
I was just curious because you're the one that can answer that question. So,
yeah, I mean, he's done. It'd be. I haven't been able to really get a feel for the type of.
I mean, there have been some weird things. Like if you look at the dead cap and you see that Marcus Cannon's getting, $5 million, or you see that Shaq Lawson is, and that could even be just as much about evaluation of players as cap, although they did push some of that back. So
yeah, they did some weird restructures, and I didn't understand some of the restructures that they did the first year. They kind of really got up against the cap, and that's when they started doing the Zach Cunningham restructure and the Shaq Lawson restructure. And I just didn't understand shifting that much money forward, because or at least I knew the cap wasn't going to grow that much in 2022, and it's going to grow a little bit in 2023. I think 2024 is going to be the big spike. The
league to get that YouTube bread, baby.
Yeah, NFL doesn't like big dramatic jumps year to year. They kind of will feather it out to where it's kind of a staggered increase year to year. But yeah, the YouTube deal, that there was supposed to be a salary cap projection released at the last NFL owners meetings last week, but that was nipped in the butt because they still didn't have the Sunday ticket situation sorted out. It looked like Apple backed out. They wanted to. I was excited because we have all the Apple devices and all that stuff here, and I subscribe to their Apple Plus thing, and it sounded like Apple wanted to roll it in to the Apple Plus program, which would have been a huge savings for me. I've never subscribed to the Sunday ticket, but it sounds like NFL did not want Apple doing that, and so YouTube's going to get on that, and it sounds like the price is going to be similar to what folks paid last year. So, but it's good to get that done. So hopefully we'll maybe start seeing some leaks on salary cap projections for the next year. I'm still going to kind of hold on my 225 number. Sorry to go off on a little tangent there.
No. It's perfect, man. That's your expertise right there.
But I think back to the original question. Yeah, I think there's a little bit concerned. Just I want to see how he handles, and he's going to have. I mean, we saw the Cooks deal, but he's going to have the Tunsil situation to deal with. He's going to have the Titus Howard situation to deal with, and he's going to
have to deal with that though this offseason. Right?
He doesn't have to, but if the team is really sold on him. His cap number, I think, is $13 million next year. So that if they needed some more cap space and they were sold on him, they could do the extension, but they certainly don't have to. I mean, it's fully guaranteed next year. They can just ride it out and wait to see what happens if he's really the guy that they want to put at right tackle. It would be a heck of an investment to do two extensions
especially with the same year
with your two offensive, with your offensive tackles. That's you're talking about committing $70-80 million guaranteed between the two players. So that's a big investment. But you have one quarterback on a rookie deal, potentially a second quarterback on a rookie deal, and you can shift you can reallocate those cap dollars elsewhere. But I think this is going to be the offseason where we can really evaluate Caserio from a contract perspective. And like I said, there's been some missteps before, but now that we have some big potential deals on the horizon, some available cap dollars to spend, and maybe he actually signs a big name in free agency this offseason. I think that's going to give us a real good read on Caserio and how he's going to manage the situation going forward now that Easterby is kind of out of the picture. Oh man.
The other thing about it is the last 2 years have just been so weird that there's going to be different approaches in many angles. There's probably going to be different approaches contract wise. There's probably going to be different approaches, maybe even evaluation wise. Like I don't anticipate like Rex Burkhead being here for when games actually matter. Like, so yeah, maybe we'll learn more about Caserio as stuff goes on and kind of just the mindset changes a little bit.
Yeah. And I do think Caserio's job is safe too.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
there's any
mean,
chance that
probably so.
I think he's going to hopefully Caserio, this will be his opportunity to pick the head coach, I think. And I think his job is clearly safe, and, we'll see a new staff in there. I'm not trying to pick on Andrew Brown or anything like that. I just feel like they need more manpower, more staff.
You think he needs more help
in that salary cap department? Yeah, I think they do. I think they need a little bit of help. I thought there was rumors right when Caserio was hired. There was rumors that he was going to bring one of the football admin guys over from New England, and I don't know why it didn't happen or what, but I was told that was happening, but it never did happen. So it just, I also get the notion that Caserio is kind of one of those, like, I'll just do it myself.
You think he's an I got this guy?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's very much I'd rather it get done right. I'll do it myself kind of thing. I don't it doesn't seem like a big delegator to me, but maybe I'm misreading that.
Another I got this guy, huh?
What you think I'm wrong on that, or
no? I don't. I mean,
you don't really have a take on it.
No, I just know that Bill O'Brien was the ultimate I got this guy, and I just don't like I got this guys kind of make me nervous. Now there are guys who say I got this and they actually got it, but going from
Tennessee's
the ultimate I got this guy to that,
Yeah. Tennessee's about to get a taste of that with Vrabel up there. So
I mean, I think you I think being like, I think a healthy amount of nervousness is appropriate for Nick Caserio. Like I don't think like anyone should be like completely out on him. I don't think anyone should be like completely in on him. I think a healthy amount of nervousness and a healthy amount of skepticism is a good thing in this situation, given everything that we've been through.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with Nick. I've talked about like some of the stuff that he has said and done that I just kind of okay. But I think healthy skepticism is appropriate. I think it's appropriate for sure.
Definitely. So I appreciate everybody listening in. Over here on YouTube, got a lot of comments coming in. Keep throwing them up on the board. We'll get to as much stuff as we can tonight. And I do have a few other questions from Twitter that folks had sent me earlier this morning. But I got a kind of a different topic I wanted to dive into. So this weekend, you and I were talking at the game, and we were talking about Bryce Young and NIL money, and if that might change anything with his path. And kind of wanted to play the what if game. And what if Bryce Young
goes back?
Does not declare for the draft. I mean, the deadline, I think, is January 13th, 19th, something like that. He's going to play in the bowl game. Will Anderson's going to play in the bowl game. And, I don't really know what to read into that. If it's more of I don't think any GMs or coaches at this point would knock a player for not playing in the bowl game. But it's also probably a plus if they, from a character standpoint.
That's what I think. I don't think they blame you for not playing, but I think that it can only do good for for your outlook. Like no one's gonna frown upon someone for not doing it, but when you do it, I could see that. To me, seems like something that would go a long way with like the Caserio.
Yeah, definitely. And
I feel like that's like the kind of like act that they like.
Yeah, and he definitely likes poaching from that Alabama, player pool with Mechie and Harris this past draft. So, but what if Bryce Young went back? I mean, I've been clear on the Bryce Young train. I'm not deviating from it. I'm not big on Stroud. I'm not big on Levis. I don't want to play the project game with Anthony Richardson. I don't think this roster is in a position to go down that path. And I'm not into the wait for Caleb Williams or Drake May game for 2024. So what happens if Bryce Young goes back? What does Houston do? I think at that point it's clear you either auction off that number 1 pick or you just go with Will Anderson and try to build around it. Maybe hopefully you would have known before free agency started on Bryce Young's decision. So maybe you look at a bridge option in free agency, like a Jimmy Garoppolo, or maybe facilitate a trade for some other players, because I think we're going to see a little bit of a quarterback shuffle again this year. I think there's probably going to be 3 or 4 players on the move. And so kind of wanted to get your take on how would you, because you've been on the Bryce Young thing as well, like how would you reassess the situation for this team if Bryce Young went back to college?
Man, I don't think Bryce Young's like some can't miss generational guy. I just think he's the best guy by far. And I think there's potential that he's good. And I also think there is not as much risk as there typically is when you take someone number 1, given all the draft equity you have and given the fact that he would be an upgrade and he would excite the fan base, which I think matters, which I think they need. I don't know how much they like Will Levis. I'm skeptical. There's a lot of people falling in love with Will Levis, but if they liked Levis and they wanted to go Levis, then I would be okay. It really wouldn't shock me if they liked Levis more than Young. I mean, wouldn't shock me. But damn, if it's not Bryce, I would be open to Carter. I would be open to Anderson. I would be open to Levis. I really, all bets are off at that point.
How much money do you think, from an NIL standpoint, is on the table for Bryce Young?
I think he could make like $8 million, close to 10. I think at Alabama, he's already got the Dr. Pepper deal. He's got some other deals. I think eventually you'll get to where players of his caliber at schools like that can make closer to 10 million than 5. And then I think it's only going to go up. So, if you can make 8-10 million, you can stay in school, develop your craft and stuff, and then come out afterwards and get the rookie deal. It's that. But I would say like a Bryce Young could make like 8 mil, maybe more.
Okay.
I mean, does that seem right to you, or?
Yeah, no, I think it's very easily anywhere from 7 to 10 million. And I kind of wanted to, I'll throw up something here on the screen.
Like, because Will Levis can't do that. Like at Kentucky, maybe in basketball he could. I don't think the football and I know Mike Stoops will probably cry about that. Just like when John Calipari said it's a basketball school. Like, I mean, how that offended Stoops is hilarious. Or Mark Stoops, my bad. I'm mixing up my Stoops brothers.
I'll give the folks a little peek behind the curtain here with this document. So throw this up here. So
okay, here we go.
So this is the draft signal. This is when you see when draft picks are signing after the draft in May, June, and you see all the beat writers, media guys, local and national, they're just spouting off contract numbers. They're pulling from this document, and this is distributed out to the agents and stuff. And so what I wanted to look at here was the first round pick. I know it's real small font, but Travion Walker, his deal was $37 million
a lot of
this
bread.
past year, and with it being a $24 million signing bonus with a minimum salary the first year. So he was at, what is that? That's right at $25 million year 1 for the number 1 overall draft pick. So
that's good money.
That,
yeah, that's a big difference.
The threat of injury, there's, unless it's like an Achilles or something, there's, players come back from ACLs and things like that. So that's the big evaluation change is 8 million in NIL, stay back for another year, try to go after that championship, or $25 million year one guaranteed.
Here's where it gets real interesting though. Is go back to that and go from like 1 to 5. Go back to Walker and then go from like 1 to 5, like number 1 overall to 5. So let's go to 5.
Yeah, so
let's
Thibodeau.
So Thibodeau got
19.
That's
a
million.
So his bill was 31 million total.
So that's about a $5 million difference.
Yeah.
So the thing with Bryce Young, if he was going to make this decision, is it's not necessarily, a given that he would be the number 1 pick next year. As a matter of fact, it would probably be a lot more difficult to be the number 1 pick next year than
that's another point I wanted to get to. Yeah.
This year, because you're going to have to compete with the other 2 guys who many people believe that if they were in this draft, they would be maybe the top 2 guys taken. So if you're not, one of the top 2 quarterbacks, and then you factor in that, some of these teams that are going to be crappy might have their quarterback by that point. It's not too crazy to think that Bryce Young, like what's Garrett Wilson right there? Like Bryce Young could fall to 10. He could fall in like 10, 11 range in next year's draft.
And I think
he could still be number 1, but he could fall down.
So that's what, a $17 million drop down to pick 10.
Yeah. So that's the other thing he's got to take into account. And I know some people will say, well, this is why I want to wait for the next quarterback. No, just stop. I mean, let's just stop.
It's just become a really interesting discussion point. I saw, your guy, Bijan Robinson, declared, but I saw like Blake Corum said he's 50-50 on the deal on returning or going to the draft. And I think he's definitely a player that will be evaluating the NIL versus rookie money.
Second and third round picks, like it's almost a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Like, because if
Corum was a mid-second round pick, you're looking at a deal that's worth 4 years, $7.5 million. So less than $2 million a year. And he could probably get close to that number alone in NIL back up at Michigan, staying back another year, or probably 4 or 5 million. So I think that's going to be, there's been that discussion point. And I think other folks are looking at the quarterbacks that would go day 2, day 3 in the draft. That are underclassmen, they can make more money going back to NIL. And I think just the whole thing is really, really fun and making a really, really interesting discussion point for these players. And it's great to see. I mean, it's
good for them, man.
Yeah, definitely. It's good for them.
Like the second round running backs, like the whole thing, like, and you know how I am with running backs, like I feel for them. I understand the business side, but I feel for them. But if you're a running back, like that's going to go second round, damn, I mean, they value running backs in chill out. They value running backs in college, I mean, that's the big man on campus. So, they might not value you in the NFL, but in college, hell, if you're making a few $1 million to be the big man on campus and then you're coming back, can't turn that down.
Yeah. No, it's just a fun discussion point, and that kind of, you're pretty much kind of on the same train, same line of thinking as I am. Cause if Young is going to declare, you've got to take him overall number 1. Cause I really think it would be very easy to get too cute and try to take another player at 1.1 overall and then trade back up. Cause I think you get into those picks 6, 7, 8, 9. That's where the Carolinas, the Atlanta Falcons, the Indianapolis Colts, that's where those teams are going to be sitting, and they're all going to be looking at quarterbacks. So if Bryce Young declares, just don't get cute with it. Take him number 1 overall and move forward. I think you still hang on to Davis Mills. I saw PFF put some potential trade scenarios out there with quarterbacks.
What are you going to get for Mills?
Let me see what
like a 5th?
Let me see what Brad wrote.
Come on.
It was a little aggressive for my thinking. Let's see here. Scrolling. All right. Davis Mills to the New Orleans Saints. Saints send a 2023 sixth rounder and a 2025 third rounder. So, wow, way out there in the future for that third rounder.
Yeah, let's stop.
I think Mills has way too much value as a backup, especially on a rookie contract. I think that's just way too much value to trade that. There's just no reason to. So, but yeah, man. Yeah, that's about all I had for the Texans. It was a crazy weekend of football, though.
Probably the wildest of the year.
Between the New England game, which I mean, I have some friends that are New England Patriots fans, and they were hurt over that. I don't know what that's just very uncommon for a Belichick coach team to make that kind of major mistake at the end of a game. And then the Minnesota Vikings completing the greatest comeback in history of football with that big old collapse with the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, it was just a wild weekend. And I don't know.
Did you see the Orlovsky stats on New England's offense and just how predictable it is? Did you catch it? I was watching NFL Live today. I don't know if he tweeted it, but he said it on NFL Live, and I actually put it in my phone. So the New England Patriots, when they were under center on Sunday, because Orlovsky said it's the most predictable offense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They were under center 23 times. You know how many times they ran the ball in those 23 times under center?
Don't tell me 23.
22. They were in shotgun 34 times. You know how many times they passed when they were in shotgun? 31. Ugh. 72% of the time under center, they've run the ball, and 77% of the time when they're in shotgun, they've passed it. That's what happens when you make Matt Patricia your offensive coordinator.
I mean, and you see Mac Jones, it seems like he's screaming at him.
I've never seen him that mad.
Every opportunity they get. I was trying to see if I could pull the same stats for Houston or that kind of stuff. I'd have to download some data and do it. I found a new stats website. I've been just fascinated by it. Yeah, and then one other thing with the league that I wanted to get your take on before we dive into some of the Q&A from the folks that have been patiently waiting for us to get to their questions. So the NFL is considering moving the trade deadline back 1 or 2 weeks. Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Teams have been more willing to make trades.
Yeah, we had 10 on trade deadline day this year, which was one of the highest ever. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm very in favor of that. The more active you make the trade deadline, the better. It used to be dead. Now you get some sort of action. I'm very much in favor. More of a window, more time. Plus, the other thing about the NFL is there's teams that emerge from over a 2-week period to where, things happen, injuries happen. Maybe a team gets more desperate. Stuff shapes up to where teams that you don't even anticipate being in the playoff mix, like Jacksonville right now, they get in the mix. So maybe they'll be willing to make trades. So yeah, move it back for sure. And I think I heard Casario asked about this, and I think he seemed kind of open to it too.
Oh,
he needed 2 weeks. He needed 2 weeks to trade Cooks, who, by the way, apparently looking great in practice. He's doing more.
Yeah, it really sounded like he was going to try to run out the clock to the end of the season, but he's been getting Wednesdays off all year long, and he was practicing today, and appears to, he practiced all last week, and he ended up being a scratch, but seems to be moving even better. So maybe we might see some Cooks action in his last few games of the season.
For what?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but Chris, just keep throwing to Chris Moore. He's having a good time.
He's hurt though. He's got the hurt foot.
Yeah, he's got his hurt foot, which is probably what's bringing up the Cook scene, because I think Jalen Camp is at his max elevations. I don't think they would be able to elevate him anymore, and so they did have to bring up Johnny Johnson or somebody else off the practice squad or sign Camp, and I don't know. I think they're just going to triage that position group for the last.
Hell, they only had 3 on Sunday.
Was it 3?
I think they only had 3 active receivers on Sunday.
I thought they brought somebody up too. Oh no, that's right. They brought up Shrek. They ran and then they sat OJ Howard, so they ran a bunch of tight ends out there as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's see what some of the questions are out there from our lovely listeners. If you got any questions that we haven't hit on yet, any topics or anything, throw them up on the board. We'll try to get to as much as we can. Let's see here. So Sam was talking about last 2 years. I've wanted a different head coach. Bieniemy, Flores, now D'Amico.
Well, you dodged a bullet on the first 2.
Yeah, man. No, I think D'Amico is definitely going to be at the top of the list. There was one report that no, it wasn't a report. Fowler reported that Jonathan Gannon was at the top of Casario's list, reportedly.
Okay.
And then I sent a
I'm
message.
sure Casario loves that report, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, he hates that kind of stuff.
Because I don't think it's true. I don't think he has a top list right now. Although I do think he likes Gannon.
Yeah, I think Gannon, and then I talked to another national guy, and he said that D'Amico is likely at the top of Casario's list. So I think
I like D'Amico. D'Amico's the guy.
Yeah, I think D'Amico is going to be the guy. I think if Gannon is interested in interviewing with the team again, and hopefully he doesn't have a bad taste in his mouth from what happened this last go around, I think those are probably going to be the top 2 popular ones. And then Shane Steichen, we talked about his big article in Sports Illustrated. If you want to go read that, it's a really good read on him. A lot of background on him. Yeah,
PR.
Definitely. The agents are in full swing already. Yeah, I think those are going to be the popular names out there. And then somebody mentioned it, and here it is. Yeah, Marvin Lewis threw his hat back in the ring today. He was on I can't remember whose podcast, but said that he wanted to get back in. Oh, he was with Adam Schefter, as Truth says here. Yeah, I know.
I like Marvin a lot, man.
Yeah,
he's a great guy. He did a good job. In Cincinnati, was very patient with him, and they allowed him to do his thing. So I have the utmost respect for Marvin Lewis. But no, thank you.
Yeah, and this is why I love the comment board. So we get nobody wants Gannon, followed by Nick would go to bat for Gannon. So there's a lot of difference of opinion out there, but I think I
don't think Gannon would excite a lot of people. I mean,
no.
I don't think it'd be like there wouldn't be a parade. I mean, there's intrigue. There's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
And he seems to know what he's doing. Although I think Howie Roseman deserves a hell of a lot of credit for what's going on in Philadelphia. Yeah. But as far as just getting people pumped up, that's not going to happen with Gannon. It's just not.
And I think, and same person brought up the other name that's gotten a lot of praise lately is Ben Johnson and him.
Man, I'm hearing a lot of Ben Johnson people.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I
just don't know that much about him. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's
impressive. I mean, he's done some really good things, and he's worked. He's worked some. I just don't. I like what Detroit's doing. I think Jared Goff hasn't turned the ball over in 6 weeks, and this is a guy who the Rams were so desperate to get rid of. They were willing to give up 2 first-round picks, which, by the way, looks a lot worse than we thought it would. When we thought they were going to be in the 20s.
Between what Denver is, what Seattle's getting for the Denver pick, and then same thing there with Detroit and Los Angeles, man. And we saw it with Houston with the Tunsil deal, end up being a top pick. So, man, variance is wild. It seems to be favoring the other team more so than the other lady.
I like Ben. He's going to eventually be a head coach for sure. I just don't
know that this is the cycle.
If we're going to talk about D'Amico and all that, that just seems. I mean, it seems it seems very, very, very like, I don't know. I mean, it seems kind of quick for
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, although sometimes it happens quick.
Yeah. Mike Daniel.
I'm Team D'Amico.
Yep.
That's where I'm at.
V Brown Chubby Bear, Mike Kafka.
That's the guy. That was
Get
the.
on
I
board with
mean,
that.
a lot of people in Kansas City felt like he was the. That was the.
It wasn't Bieniemy, it was him.
It wasn't Bieniemy, it was Kafka. That's what a lot of people thought, and a lot of people in Kansas City will say, and I don't think they'll like say it publicly, that Kansas City wanted Bieniemy to go so that they could elevate Kafka, but they wouldn't be able to do it. And the Giants, I thought it was a smart move by Dable and them to offer him the OC job there. And I mean, I know Dable has a big hand in it, but if you look at what Daniel Jones has done this year, and again, it's not like anything to write home about, but the way that they've done stuff, Kafka does look good. I like Mike Kafka. I don't know if he's ready either. Like Ben is. I don't know if he's ready. He might need to do a little bit more. But I mean, there's some people who thought that was the Kansas City assistant that kind of went under the radar because there was a lot of buzz with Bieniemy.
Yep, right with you on that. Cal was with Dre and Rick Smith at the Rockets game the other night. I think Dre doesn't want to be a coach or anything like that, but I think there's a place for him in this organization.
No
whatever
doubt.
Whatever
No
title
doubt.
you want it to be.
Just another point of view from Dre. Yeah, for sure. Rick Smith, though, like Cal and Rick Smith are buddies. Like, it's not like I wouldn't read too much into it. Like they're very close. Like Rick Smith was very close with the McNairs. Rick Smith is in town. So, I mean, I wouldn't read a ton into that. I do find it interesting, though, that Andre and them are spending a lot of time together. I wonder what Andre thinks about stuff. But yeah,
and if he's going to give it to you unvarnished as well, I would love to be a fly on the wall when he gives his feedback, because it's going to be just straight to the point.
Yes,
and which is probably what Cal needs to hear, if we're being honest. So
no doubt.
It's Cooks coming back. He just needs to stay off the field. We talked about that a little bit before,
Seems like he's coming back.
It seems like we might.
How much would it suck if he came back and just completely smashed and they won 4 games behind Brandon Cook's efforts?
That would suck.
God.
Yeah, but
did you see the line on the game now? By the way,
saw -3 about an hour ago.
3.
But it's Malik Willis time. So
dude, 3. Something's going on. This feels like a Texans win.
It's -3. It's going to be -5 degrees at game time. Malik Willis didn't even throw the ball in the second half the last time they played against Houston.
Malik Collins didn't play either. So
no,
that's what Lovie was talking about. You got your big psycho in the middle. Malik Collins is nuts out there, by the way.
He's been playing his ass off ever since coming back from injury. The dude's been he's
a monster. He's a good piece.
Very good. And he's really coming to his own. He's under contract next year. So good to have him back. And that's one of the positive contracts that Caserio and company has on the book. So definitely excited about that. Let's see here. I think Titus gets extended or plays on the 5th year. So we kind of briefly touched that before. I don't think there's a wrong answer, really. It just depends on how much you want to invest at the position. But I don't think there's any problem with waiting on that extension. And then if he continues playing well at right tackle, you do a midseason extension next year. You'll have assuming he doesn't they don't push the cap again like they did this year and have to do some in-season restructure. So hopefully they have some available cap dollars heading into the season for that type of situation where you get 8-9 games into the season. Howard's still playing well. He's still progressing. Then you pull the trigger on the deal and get that done. Cause I don't really envision him as a franchise tag kind of player. And he's not a marquee type of right tackle, but he's very capable and he gets the job done. And he's not a reason why you have issues on the offensive line. So, and then
not even close.
Yeah. So I think that's how I would kind of play it out. I mean, if you didn't want to do the extension, then look at it during the season. Cotoriano is a baller. Man, he's quietly becoming a solid day 3 pick for a 5th rounder. I was quite a bit leery on Cotoriano based on what he was injured all through camp. Didn't really seem like I thought he was going to be redshirted, to be honest with you. I thought he was going to stay on IR all year. But he's a good blocker. He's a willing blocker, except for this past week. But for most weeks, he's been
he's going to get big.
Yeah, and he's still growing, and
he's going to work his ass off. He seems like a really, really, really good kid. Like, and I feel like I can call him a kid at this point. I feel like I'm getting to the age, late 30s.
You're getting old enough to where you can call him a kid.
Yeah, I mean 22. Yeah, I mean like he was, he was 16 years younger. So I had my driver's license, I think, when he was born. So yeah, I think I can do that. But he seems like a hard worker. I think the body, I'm always fascinated by the body transformation from like rookies to when you see him in mini camp and training camp like the next year. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys where you look at him and damn, look at Quitoriano and look how big that dude got. I think that's what he's going to be. He's a good depth guy. Like I don't know that he's going to be,
he'll be your tight end 3 inline blocker that can sneak out.
Yeah.
Get a few.
And you need multiple tight ends. So, I mean,
any system
you can't have enough.
Need tight ends. And I think you'll have him back. And I think Brevin Jordan might be around next year for camp.
He had his best catch of his career. That was a nice catch in traffic. I would say that was the big
I don't see any reason why you would let go of Brevin Jordan in the offseason.
He's fighting for his NFL life, though.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. He's bring him back for camp and see if he can do. And he's kind of that training camp fraud. He does well in camp, and then it just goes downhill once the season starts. But
he's going to be a guy where if it doesn't work out for him, then he's going to be a guy who, maybe someone has someone has like a, I don't know, linebacker or D lineman that they don't like, or a wide receiver that they don't like that has maybe some potential, and maybe you swap out Brevin Jordan for that guy, or he makes your team and he's kind of like one of those depth tight ends. But I mean, he doesn't block very well. He doesn't consistently catch the ball. He's got potential to make the phenomenal play. And he also has potential to screw up the basic plays. So, man, Brevin's going to be fighting for his NFL life next year. It's similar to Ross Blacklock. It's kind of like how Blacklock in year 3, we thought he was doing that. That's what Brevin's going to be doing. Although obviously Blacklock was more of a premier pick. So if a 5th round guy doesn't make it on your roster in year 3, not the end of the world, but let me put it this way. He's not going to stop them from trying to improve the tight end position. Like they're not going to say, oh, well, we got Brevin Jordan. He's going to have to earn his spot next year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think go ahead and bring back Jordan Akins, 1-year deal.
You think?
And yeah, I think so. I think he's earned the right to at least
get
a small guarantee, and come back and see if he can continue on in camp and earn another roster spot. OJ Howard, no, thank you.
Bye.
And yeah. Let's see here. This was an interesting question. So, do we worry about constant change? No, it's kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves with it, but it's an interesting talking point. So, worry about changing OC over and over if you had D'Amico in there. To me, if you're funneling coaches out that are turning into head coaches, then you've got a heck of a pipeline. You've got a heck of a system in place.
Is Kyle Shanahan worried about shuffling D-line? No. Defensive coordinators, like if Robert Saleh gets the Jets job and then 2 years later D'Amico gets the 49ers job, I don't think that's like a problem. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Free agent talk. Elgin Jenkins at right guard. Yeah, so let me throw this up on the screen here. Let's see here. Yeah, so I had a couple of questions as well on Twitter for a couple of folks that couldn't make it for the live show. And one of the questions was, what kind of free agency moves could the team look at when it comes to interior offensive line. And I'll throw up here. This is the back end, the premium view on Over the Cap, and this is the valuation tables. And so I've got it sorted by free agents, and then their positional values. So this positional value is basically our way of putting a dollar figure on a player's value, and it uses PFF grading and some other metrics to come up with this number. It's just a different way to put a value on a player. You know, PFF has grades, you know, we have the dollar values. And so I think, and you're not going to see Jenkins on here for the person who was interested in that, because we have him as a tackle. I know he's playing guard now for Green Bay, but his initial contract was a tackle. But this is just kind of to highlight how barren the interior offensive line. This is just right guard and left guards. Center's even worse. There's really not much names once you get past Ben Powers and Dalton Risner, who had his fifth-year option declined. He was originally a tackle as well. Roger Saffold is very old. Will Hernandez is very old. And then, look, David Questenberry. We know him. And so I think you get into players like Nate Davis and stuff. There's just really not that much out there when it comes to right guard and left guard. And I really don't know how the team would address this position. I think AJ Cann is serviceable. I think where the team really could benefit is if they find a center, whether it's a center who comes out of the draft or comes out of free agency, because I think finding a good center will make AJ Cann and Kenyon Green better guards. And I think that's the key component that the team needs to look at. And so I think the players that are going to probably be the most interesting will be Connor McGovern, who's a little bit older, but he's very good in his own scheme. So a lot of these players are very scheme driven, just like Garrett Bradbury. He's a zone type of center. And then Bradley Bozeman, I think, is another player to look at, and he's more of a power guy. So beyond that, there's really not many centers out there that are gonna drive a lot of costs. Jake Brendel is another zone guy. So it really depends on the type of scheme, what kind of offensive system is put in place here. But I think for interior offensive line, I think center is the place where Caserio really needs to try to make some hay, whether it's through draft or through free agency. Justin Britt, I think we're all in agreement he'll be gone. And then Questenberry, I don't see.
Will be gone or is gone.
Yeah, well, he is kind of already gone. Still technically under contract, but so I mean, that would kind of be, just to answer that question, that would be my take on the situation, that it's kind of barren out there when it comes to those two positions, but you're going to have to do something. And I think the key spot would be center.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do something there.
Yeah.
Have to.
Let's see here. Any position coaches other than Frank Ross you'd want to retain? No. No, I don't think there's anybody else.
I mean, I don't have a real strong opinion on that.
No. Somebody was asking what a Titus extension would look like. I'll get into that in the offseason. I think I'll probably do a show just on that. And then, did Lovie save his job because of the last two games? No. I can see the sentiment from that, but
no,
I don't see that happening. So what is this here? You dropped a couple of bombs in regards to the head coach of the Texans may need a late Texans Twitter space. I don't know what bombs we dropped. I think,
what's the bomb?
Yeah, I think the things we've been talking about here have been well over.
I don't have any bomb. These are just opinions. I don't have any I don't have any news or anything for you.
Which position group would you expect to have the biggest turnover next year? That's an interesting question.
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver, yes. I think the second, safety position, but I think the secondary for the most part, if you can get Tarvier Thomas and Tremont Smith back, I think that's
a safety.
Pretty solid. Yeah,
I think it's wide receiver. I could see a scenario where linebackers, depending on how you look at that, but it's definitely wide receiver.
If they move Cooks and then either draft or sign a guy, the wide receiver free agency is going to be a little barren as well. But
and I think does Mechie count too? Like I guess Mechie. Okay, so you're going to get Mechie. You're going to be in position where you might be able to get the best wide receiver with your second pick in the draft, depending on how Cleveland finishes out. So yeah, wide out. I don't know if Rodgers is back or not. Dorsett, okay. So yeah, wide out. Maybe tight end. I could see a scenario where
and Amari Rodgers is under contract through.
Oh yeah, that's right. So Rodgers is back. Yes.
Yeah. So,
but there's no guarantees he's on the team.
No, and his contract has no guarantees in it or anything like that. But he'll be back in camp at a minimum and have a shot at this roster. But yeah, I think linebacker and wide receiver definitely would be the two, and maybe defensive line. I think
running back's you're gonna have a couple new faces, but Pierce is gonna be one of the.
Running back's going to be really interesting because we've talked about it on here. There's a couple of good running backs that are going to be in the draft late in the first round, early second round. I haven't really looked at any names that would be potential late day 2, early day 3 picks, kind of like what Pierce was. But this free agency class for running back is something to keep an eye on. You're going to have some pretty big names, and I'm not big on running backs in free agency. I
hate running backs.
I think,
let's be honest.
I think that's a kind of a waste of money, and you're going to be paying market value for a player who's going to have a lot of tread on there. But there's
Tony Pollard doesn't have a lot of tread.
Yeah, that was going to be the one exception, I think. Saquon Barkley, I think he's had a lot of work on him. Kareem Hunt's a little bit older. Jamal Williams, the touchdown king up in Detroit. Josh Jacobs, who's been run hard in Las Vegas. And so, hey, Deontay Foreman's going to be free agent. Good for him. But yeah, I would rather go young, obviously, but I'm not completely opposed to like a Tony Pollard type player. Tony Pollard and Dameon Pierce would be a very fun 1A, 1B duo situation.
Country as hell, too. That's what I like. I just like how country they both are.
Yeah, and
Georgia and Memphis, sign me up for that.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about, Truth. I think he's not Pierce is not a true bell cow RB1. He's a 1A, 1B kind of guy. I think if you can get another, whether it's through the draft or through free agency, I think it's definitely worth having another strong running back there. And then whoever RB3, RB4 is, special teams, work like that. Anybody not named Rex Burkhead. But no, that's man, we covered a lot of ground tonight. That's really about all I had. We're an hour and 24 minutes, so that's got to be a new record. And is Bijan Robinson viable with the Browns pick?
I think we're getting to the areas, Cap, and I know how you feel about it.
Hey, I gave in a little bit last week.
If it goes to if we get to the Browns having the 15 or 16 and Bijan Robinson's there at 15 or 16, you might just have to do it. You might just have to do it. You might just have to do it, Cap.
I would squirm a little bit, but I would accept it.
You should throw a party if you're at 15 or 16 and you get Bijan Robinson.
Yeah,
that's a slot receiver. That's a running back. That's a Pierce rest. I mean, you could do some wonders with that.
Yeah, I agree.
So you show some respect, Cap, to him. This was, hey man, you brought it today. You were ready to go.
I try, sir. I try.
You always try. You always do a great job.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody. A lot of good interaction tonight, man. I love the interaction from the folks. Appreciate all the comments and the questions. We'll keep this going. Be back next week again. Think so. I don't think there's.
By the way, I saw Cap having a what's it called whenever druggies don't get what they need? Like, what's it called? It's
the fix or whatever.
No. What's it called when they start shaking? Withdrawal. I saw Cap in the press box having withdrawals. I was worried
Need to
about
have a
him.
chat with Omar, man. Not
They
having
didn't have Coke Zero there for a
having
little
Coke
bit,
Zero up
and I
there.
mean,
I
my man was sweating.
found one machine over in the corner that had a few Coke Zeros, and
My man
able
was
to
sweating without that Coke Zero. Good
relax.
Lord.
Yeah, I was good though. I got my Coke Zero. I was much better after that.
It was
I need to have a chat with Omar, get that fixed.
it was going like this.
I don't think it was that bad, but I was complaining, and that was
Where's the
enough.
Coke Zero?
Yeah.
Where's
Where's
the
it
Coke
at?
Zero? Where's it at?
Somebody go find it. Yeah,
Hey, anyone got some Coke Zero?
I like my Coke Zero.
Anyone got the Coke Zero? Where's it at? Oh my God. I gotta go get some. About to go in the
Oh, man.
corner or something like that, man.
Yeah, see me disappear for a while over there, straight in the vein. No, yeah, show is highlights my Wednesdays. We're glad you're here with us. A lot of fun doing these, and we'll definitely be back next Wednesday and continue on as much as we can. Got a lot of off-season stuff in the works. I'm really excited about that, and I think that'll be fun for a lot of folks. A lot of peeks behind the curtains, show some documents and information that you normally wouldn't see publicly, and go through some contract projections, things like that. So we got a lot of fun stuff. I even got a player agent lined up. We'll do a faux contract negotiation live here
Oh,
on
wow.
the channel. So that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Sign me up for that.
And yeah, so it'll be a lot going on, but got 3 more games. See if we can get some more competitive losses. I'd rather have a competitive loss. I don't think any kind of competitive loss would change the mindset of upper management with regards to Lovie Smith. So I'd rather see some competitive games and then have them end up being a loss and rake in that number 1 pick and get heavy into the offseason. So Landry, sir, I appreciate it. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
Hope you have a fantastic holiday. Good Christmas. And
you too.
We will see everybody back next weekend. So with that, we will shut it down, and everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
Locker Room on YouTube.